Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
44 and a big news week. Remember how we were teasing people last week?
Yeah. Not so subtle.
Not so subtle that we were going to have an exciting week inside the arena, off the court, off the ice, off the field of play, and it has been.
We are the new local TV broadcast partner of the Seattle Storm.
Yes.
How cool is that?
It is awesome, and great exposure for the WNBA four-time champion Seattle Storm at a time when they've invested a lot in the franchise, in their new practice facility and team headquarters that is about a year old now, as the franchise value has gone up considerably, one of the top two most valuable franchises in the WNBA, and they are our new partners here at KOMO TV.
Well, we talk often on the show about broadcast rights and streaming and all that sorts of thing. Well, all these Storm games now, at least the 33 that we're carrying, are going to be available for free over the air, whether it's on KOMO for 13 of them or on Seattle CW ARC Seattle, so KUNS. So it's a great opportunity for fans to know exactly where you're going to see, at least 3/4 of those games. Another chunk of those games will be on ION. One of the games will end up being on KOMO as part of the ABC national stuff. So it's just a cool thing because, again, we talk about accessibility and something like the Mariners to get creative with a streaming package, right?
Yeah.
The Storm just comes to us. We're going to put it out there for fans. It's going to be so much fun to watch.
And pregame shows and all that kind of fun stuff. A lot of exciting things planned here at KOMO World Headquarters.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about it during the show. You're going to hear more from Rohre Titcomb and Lisa Brummel. Titcomb is the COO. Brummel is the co-owner of the Storm. They're going to talk about what this means to them and also just the growth of the franchise. And we're going to obviously get in depth about the other big story. As we've told people, we always like to caution we record at one time, and sometimes things develop after we've already published this show, this podcast. And we did have big developments from Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, when it comes to the return of the NBA. So we got a lot to talk about in this show, but we always like to start. Normally we start with what's good, what's bad in the world of sports. Off the court, off the ice, off the field of play. It's called Four Corners. Yes, that's a baseball term, but we like to always go down for the first baseline with you, Niko.
Yeah, and I just want to continue what I said about the Storm a minute ago. This is really a monumental partnership. This is, we talked about the benefits for fans a minute ago, and that's what matters, right? It is the idea that the W is growing at this skyrocketing rapid rate. And right at that time, it's a perfect time for us to be their partners and be able to make sure that so many can see these games. And we were talking, our friend Nate Silverman, friend of the show.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Yeah, and to Lisa Ria, the general manager. And, they're both saying how this is so important because there is a next generation of fans that are kids right now that are, be able to watch these games readily. And maybe if they don't already pick up basketball, maybe get into it. And it can be life-changing in that respect. But at the very least, they get to watched their Storm. And it's a cool thing. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to, try to follow a feed on Twitter or something like that, right? So we're really excited about it. You mentioned pregame shows. We will have pregame shows for a select amount of them. And how cool is this? As you go into this Storm season, you're talking about a little bit of change, a new era. Yeah, the core four is back. You got Skylar Diggins-Smith, Ezzie Magbagor, Gabby Williams, and Nneka Ogwumike. But you also have that second overall pick. And that's a big deal, and that's something we're going to be watching very closely. What they do with that pick, it's a big question. Who they take, if they move it as part of another package, you never know anywhere, especially the W. So they're going to host a draft party on the 14th. It's a Monday, 3:30 when the draft starts at Queen Anne Beer Hall. So what a cool, can you picture like you're there watching it, and then they pull off some blockbuster move, or even if you take somebody at number 2, they're a pretty darn good player, obviously. So a lot of fun stuff. So I just wanted to continue our Storm announcement. We are thrilled. We're so excited.
And selfishly, I'd love to see a certain UConn player.
Well, I think they'd have to get the number 1 pick for that to happen. Paige Beckers is special, and she likes it in Seattle. I know that. She came to watch her former teammate Nika Mule last year, and she was at Climate Pledge. Very much liked it. You never know. Talisa's a great GM. I mean, it took a tough situation and turned it into the second pick, right? Kept the rest of the team intact. Now, she did give me a jersey yesterday during the announcement. Actually, Nate gave it to me, but I'm like, that would be the hugest waste of the second overall pick ever. So, no, but it's exciting. And everybody loves drafts. Everybody, no matter the sport, loves the draft. Well, the Storm hits this new era with that number 2 pick, and we can't wait for it.
And we've seen the ratings for the WNBA draft go up in the last year, too, in expectation that the interest will continue to be high this year for a draft that maybe a few years ago people weren't paying attention to. Sure. They're definitely going to be paying attention to it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And for any Storm fans out there listening, you will see how we treat our partners. We are going to do so much with the Storm. We like to cover every team, obviously, and we do a lot of great things with that. But you will see what Storm being our partner, how we treat them, and how awesome it's going to be. They're going to obviously treat us well too, but we have a lot of fun stuff planned. It isn't just, hey, put the games on your air and then other than that, no, you're going to see them in our sportscast daily. You're going to see, we mentioned those pregame shows, and we have great reporter teams, and even on our announcement that you were out there doing stuff, Denise Whitaker was. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see all the things we do for and with the Storm.
The home of professional basketball
is right here.
Right here on KOMO and the CW, because don't forget the Blazers as well.
Yes.
Down in Portland have been on our air. Okay, I'll tell you something else that I think is positive. The Kraken season is almost coming to an end. We have talked about the ratings and the attendance this year. I just get the sense, talking with people, there's going to be some significant changes at the Kraken Community Iceplex with that franchise. And there is, I can't say who brought this up with me, there is a real buzz about Berkeley Catton.
Oh, yeah.
The number 1 pick last year with the Kraken, who's in Spokane with the Chiefs. There are a lot of people in the hockey ops over the KCI who are very excited about him. He just was a Western Conference All-Star in the Western Hockey League. Also, I mean, these numbers, 109 points, 38 goals, 71 assists. 71 assists in 57 games.
Is that good?
Those are all good numbers. Young kid, 19 years old. I think there's going to be a question maybe in the next season. How do you have all these centers playing on the ice in any particular game? They seem to be heavy in that position. Maybe that's going to lead to some trades. We'll see. But it does seem like in the last 10 to 15 games, they've been a different team. They seem to have options now, and they'll have options with especially after the trading deadline and going into next season, they will have options with that roster and see if they can get somebody like Berkeley at the Western Hockey League level that can score over 100 points a season.
Well, let's be clear, Ron Francis knows how to draft, right?
Yep.
You look at him, you look at Shane Wright, you look at Matty Beniers, and the list goes on. Riker Evans is a mainstay now. But Ron, when we played that interview with him a couple of weeks ago, Ron said, he's like, listen, they've got those 10 draft picks in the first couple of rounds. They're not going to use them all on players. Right, they're going to move some draft picks for, like you said, a high caliber scorer, and you're talking about first and second round ammunition, there, right? So, 3 drafts, 10, 25, 26, 27, 10 picks in the first 2 rounds. Some of those will be moved to there's going to be a really exciting summer for the Kraken. I can't wait to see what Ronnie does over there.
Well, what don't you like as we go from second to third?
You know what I don't like?
Oh, is this a rant?
Maybe.
Is this a rant?
I wasn't even that mad about it at first. I'm just sick of people talking to me about it. These stupid torpedo bats. Like, what the heck? Listen, I get it. Like, it's legal. Like, the Yankees didn't break any rules, but leave it to the Yankees to find something like that. And now you got every team ordering. The Mariners ordering some of them. Adam Jude was the first to report that over at the Times. And I think that, I was, full disclosure, just a little before we recorded this show, I was leaving T-Mobile Park. I was doing some live reports there pregame and postgame, and it's like everybody wants, hey, what do you think about those torpedo bats? I'm like, I don't care. Who cares? You know what I'm saying?
Bill cares.
But here's my point. Here's why I'm ranting about it. This shouldn't even be a thing. There should be some regulation that, it's legal because it weighs the same. No, it's clearly not the same bat. Major League Baseball is once again playing catch up. That's the issue here. They're playing catch up. And this is something that is so simple that you should just say, you know what? The width of the bat has to be the same throughout the barrel, right? Or something like that is like the quickest, easiest solution. But you leave yourself open to these situations like this when you just have vague rules, like the weight of it. And you know what I'm saying? And we have seen this many times. And now I'm not putting this in the same craziness of some of the things they've had going on in the past, but it just always seems like MLB is playing catch up in that regard. And here we are again, and every city that has a Major League Baseball team is talking about torpedo bats instead of the first week of the season.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, come on, figure it out.
Yeah, the Mariners could use some torpedo bats.
Well, they couldn't have. That's probably why they ordered some.
Yeah. Well, I'll say what I don't like, and that's the weather, as it pertains to the Mariners.
Sure.
Boy, they're just having the same old situation in April. You, of all people, know this better than anyone, how the weather impacts the games at T-Mobile Park. It has for years. The Mariners continuing to struggle out of the gate offensively. That's why they need those torpedo bats. And, you know, we see this every year, but it still is noticeable that, you know, ticket sales are soft out of the gate for the Mariners. That is... You know, that's connected to the enthusiasm with the franchise that now for several years, 3 or 4 years, they've had this issue with contact on the baseball, low batting averages, really getting an offense going. And the season has started like the seasons of old.
Yeah, it's, the attendance, sure, like you mentioned, there's fans that have like, okay, 2 years missing by one game and you didn't go out and get the big name. I get that. But it's also been pretty chilly there. I've been live at a lot of those, and it's like, the roof is closed, or even when it's open and it's deceptively sunny, it's still cold out, right? So, and if go and figure, they go hit the road and it's going to be 70 in Seattle, of course. But colder air, it's tougher for the ball to travel. And then you factor in, you get that breeze off Elliott Bay that kind of pushes everything in. And, we chronicled the issues with it's not the dimensions of the ballpark, it's like the way it's built, it kind of traps that cold, heavy air.
Yeah.
And, unless you're a big-time home run hitter or somebody that can just, overcome that, like we've seen Julio do at times or like we saw Cal do last year, it's going to be an issue. So, and that's, I think, adding to the fans being like, well, why didn't you go out and get that big home run hitter? But, hey, you know what? They seem content to run back with the roster. The players say it was a vote of confidence. Let's see if they warm up with the weather and maybe the fans start coming more as well.
Yeah. Well, as an aside, I will tell you this is not positive or negative. It's kind of interesting to me, too, that in the last few years, the Mariners have really kind of dipped their toe into the political realm more with the housing issue down in Soto. In this last week, they've signed off on a letter asking the state legislature to avoid a payroll tax and a wealth tax, which, by the way, does factor into, you start talking about a wealth tax, multi-million-dollar players coming to town. So it's kind of interesting, I just think, objectively, to see how the Mariners have been more engaged, involved in the local political landscape than they have in years gone by.
See, this is why I love doing a show with you. Like, oh, I'm excited about Gary Payton throwing out the first pitch on Tuesday, and this past Tuesday, and you're talking about like the stuff that really matters.
Hey, it's all about what's going on off the ice, off the court, off the field of play. And another big thing that happened this week is part of our Supersonic Minute. Something we'd like to do. Yes. How about that for a segue? The air horn still works. Big news out of New York City. The Board of Governors, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, did speak with reporters, something he does at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, at the NBA Finals, and he was held to his previous statements by a couple of the reporters in the room about the NBA expansion timeline. We have talked about it at length here, the fact that he said they would get to NBA expansion in the fall, then it was this season, and now it's at the end of the season, and what's going on. He was asked about that and acknowledged that he has changed the timeline. And he also talked directly to Seattle. A question from Tim Booth of the Seattle Times. You will hear his Seattle-specific answer right after this.
Luxury awaits at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, where comfort meets elegance. This summer, experience breathtaking Cascade views, world-class dining, and play your favorite games. Elevate your next getaway by combining effortless style with the utmost relaxation. Seattle's closest is now Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
For fans who've kind of ridden the peaks and valleys of this expansion conversation, at this point, what is kind of you see as a viable timeline for how this is going to play out, being that you originally had thought that it was going to be addressed before the end of the season. And with that, what's your message to fans in these cities that have been talked about for expansion who are kind of getting maybe tired of going with the ups and downs of it?
Yeah, so I'm tremendously empathetic to those fans. I will speak directly to Seattle and very much appreciate your being here. I wish I could be more conclusive today and say, here it is, here's the timeline. There are events that are clearly outside of my control. Part of it, as I said, is trying to assess value in a way that's both fair even to a potential owner and fair to the existing owners in terms of what it means to add additional partners, different cities, divide up, our current media pie with, the 31st or 32nd share. And also, we want to make sure we put teams in a position, particularly as we're setting the price, to be in a position to be competitive, economically successful, and just as importantly for the other teams, successful on the floor. And the issue I would not have anticipated at the time I sort of began talking about the timeline is how much unknown there is about local media right now. Having said that, though, I would just say again to our many fans in Seattle, and I hear from them often, and the legacy of the Sonics is still very strong, and it's a fantastic basketball market, is that we are very focused on it. The fact I think that I'm not being more sort of forthcoming publicly doesn't mean we're not studying it very intensively. We don't take those fans for granted. We're thankful that the interest has remained over all these years. And so I would just say the fact that we're not ready to make any public announcements with a specific timeline doesn't mean we don't care a lot about those fans and we aren't very focused on the potential for the NBA to return to Seattle.
Chris, I want to get your take on those comments, because here's the thing. When he said it, if you went online, like, there was half the people being like, oh, it's closer, he's talking about Seattle. I took that as a win for Seattle. The fact that the expansion process hasn't even started, obviously. And he's directly talking to Seattle. Like, from a standpoint, usually these things, that, as you know, they open up and they have to be cagey because all these cities are applying. You don't want to upset Kansas City and Louisville by only talking about Seattle and Vegas, right? So I took it as a huge positive, the fact that he was like, I hear from those fans often, we love Seattle, everything he said about it, right? Yet I saw a lot of negative chatter on social media. Well, the NBA is never coming here, or, well, this is bad news for Seattle, the fact that they're focused on Europe and things like that. I think the two things coexist, but I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think I said this on KOMO TV, that those comments, I think one could look at them and be very frustrated by Adam Silver, and one could also be encouraged at the same time. Silver and David Stern, the late David Stern before him, very skilled at the verbiage they use, very skilled at messages they try to send externally and internally. And what you heard there is him acknowledging that the timeline's moved and that it's because of the Boston Celtics sale. He came out and said it. But he also said in his comments to reporters about a 31st and 32nd team. He seemed to open the door for only expanding by one, which was new. He also talked about the concern with local media rights, which I think would cause some level of concern in Seattle, because it almost sounds like that's going to be the way out of expansion, is saying we can't do this because local media rights aren't as don't generate the same amount of money as they did in the past. But the fact that he said that to Seattle, I think Tim has talked about this too, that if that question had come from a Vegas-based reporter, maybe he's talking directly to Vegas. And so it does sound like the timeline, the best timeline that he can provide right now is they've got to get that Celtics deal finalized, meaning the finances have been presented to the NBA Board of Governors. They've got to make sure that everything checks out. They've got to sign off on that. And then it's a few months down the road. And this is where Sonics fans get frustrated. People want the team to get frustrated. Well, it's been so many years, because it just consistently seems like it's getting kicked down the road to another date on the calendar. But the next date on the calendar would potentially be the Board of Governors meeting in July down in Las Vegas. If it doesn't happen there, now you're looking at September in New York. Now you're talking about a timeline that went from potentially a team in 2026 to now 27, 28, and beyond. And that's where people get frustrated, because If you're talking about 2028, the team left in 2008,
Yeah.
and it would be 20 years. And so I think that's, the idea of the timeline moving, people getting excited, people in Seattle in particular getting excited. I think that's frustrating to people, and they didn't exactly get a straight answer from Silver on what he means by let me talk directly to the Seattle fans. I know that there are people here still locally who believe, based on what he said, that they could open up this expansion discussion at some point this year. Yeah.
It is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I think that you understand the folks who took it a negative way, but I also look at it, I'm like, he's talking, and you said he'll talk directly to Vegas too, right? But it's an interesting way to look at it, no question about it.
Well, and I was glad in a certain respect that Tim was there to ask that question and get a Seattle answer, because the previous question was the commissioner essentially saying, hey, we've had some things happen that are out of my control.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this at a later date. So it was good that Tim was there to at least get a Seattle question in. But maybe we should talk about the existing professional basketball
They
teams.
have carried the torch, haven't they?
Yeah, the green and gold.
Of the Storm.
You're going to hear from Rohre Titcomb and Lisa Brummel of the Seattle Storm immediately following this break.
Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel's award-winning outdoor summer concert series is back. See amazing artists like Hanson, Austin Jenks, Melanie Fiona, and POD this summer overlooking the beautiful Snoqualmie Valley. Visit snowcasino.com for tickets. Seattle's closest is now Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
We made this investment because as you look ahead over the 3 to 5 year, 10-year period, you could invest in marketing, you could invest in advertising, which we would do to grow the business. But what's the big step that helps the players? What separates you from other teams? And we knew then it was going to be the practice facility. They needed a place to do their jobs differently, better, more comfortably. And you see, we were one of the first to announce. Vegas was the first to occupy. New York has one. But you see other teams trying to catch up now. And you can't build a building overnight. So you have to decide early that you're going to do it. And you have to take the risk on the investment because you believe it will pay off. I don't want to be that team that's waiting to 27 or 28 before they get one of these. I just don't know what I would do. So happy we took the risk.
We have a long history of championships here at the Storm, and we like to be able to showcase that from the courts with our championship banners. And then when we're here doing business, we also get to be with championship court.
How do you think the WNBA has changed just in the last year, and how that ties into having a building like this?
There has been incredible growth across all realms of the WNBA, and the Storm are really, really proud to have been one of the leaders in getting a practice facility built so that we can have a home for our players, for our staff, and for our community to come together. And we have just seen in a short amount of time, so we opened the building just about 1 year ago, almost to the day, and we have seen more and more teams making commitments to build practice facilities and really try and catch up to the visionary investment that our owners made. And there's incredible media growth. You've seen the numbers, big numbers being put up across all teams to have just incredible interest across the entire league.
It almost seems like preemptively it was a smart business decision.
I would agree. Our owners, we have we have a phenomenal business leadership. And I think our owners took a risk, but they took a calculated risk. They're very entrepreneurial. They are very long-term thinking. And I think they saw that with the talent coming into the WNBA, with the position that the Storm had here in the Seattle community, and where there could be competitive advantages for the business, that a practice facility was the way to go. And they decided to take that leap. And I'm so glad they did, because we see now that everybody else is trying to catch up.
Yeah, I mentioned the recruiting effort downstairs and walking through and showing off the banners and the trophies, but I've got to believe just on a business side too, having a building like this and recruiting new talent and recruiting employees also helps.
Absolutely. When you walk in these front doors, you see our players putting the work in, and you see the opportunity to be able to be a part of a franchise like this, of an organization like this, and we are seeing really, really great talent being attracted. We're seeing great new partners joining the fold. We're seeing really, really incredible numbers from a ticketing standpoint. So we're really, really proud of the growth. And this building has been a phenomenal part and a catalyst to really accelerate that growth.
We were talking about it a little bit in the other room with Lisa, but the idea that you look at the valuations now of franchises, and the franchises that are near the top are the ones that have their own facility like this. What do you think that says about the league?
I think we're just getting started in some ways. And there's a long history of success in the WNBA, and I think we've really reached kind of a new level that there's a lot of new investment coming in all across the league, and we're just going to keep seeing that growth. It's really, really exciting.
From a business perspective, given all the new interest in the last year and a half in women's basketball on a college and WNBA level, I mean, there's a lot of new fans. How do you take advantage of that?
You know, I think when we think about ways to take advantage of the growth and make it durable, I think it starts with the basketball. And I think we're in a really, really great position. We've got a really strong team, and we have really strong talent 1, 2, 3, 4 years out of coming into the W. So I think we can feel really confident that the basketball you see on the court is going to be exciting, it's going to be high quality, and there's going to be real competition across, you know, all of the franchises. And that's what you want in sports, right? You want to show up, you want to watch a great game, and you want it to be close and competitive. So I think that's one way. The other thing that we look at is, you know, cementing our brand. And, you know, we've had this really, really great, the Storm and the Seattle community, I would say, they go hand in hand. And so we've really, really invested in our brand. And, you know, we've shown up for the fans and for the city of Seattle over, you know, our time as a franchise. And now we're seeing that those fans, they want to show up for us too.
And having a performance center, I tell people if they haven't been to a WNBA game, it's different than it was 10 to 15 years ago. The quality of play is significantly better now. You're showing off all this stuff that didn't exist a few years ago. When you have a performance center like this, what does that mean for the growth of the franchise, just in terms of the quality of the play?
I'm so glad you bring this up. Technology is another really important part of how we make our growth durable. We talked a little bit about the player tech downstairs. We also are investing in technology here in the front office and looking at ways we can leverage, you know, all of the exciting AI that's out there. How can we take more ways to connect players and fans in game? How can we enhance our broadcast? So technology is a huge part of how we can grow the business.
Yeah, I got to tell you that Lisa Brummel doing that tour, you could see just how excited she was to show it off. That was a gamble for the team, for the franchise, for the owners. She acknowledged that they started talking about it back in 2018.
Wow.
And she said, thankfully, we didn't try and start it then because of what happened with the pandemic. And 72 hours after they won in the Wubble, they said, let's go for this, her and Ginny Gilder, and invest $64 million in private money to build a facility. They had to go through a whole change at the Seattle City Council to allow them to build something that was 50,000 square feet versus 5,000 or 10,000 square feet there. And after going through all of that, then they build. Then the WNBA interest surges in a little over a year. The fact that both Seattle and Vegas built their own facilities has boosted the franchise value. So for both Seattle and Vegas, it looks like that gamble paid off and extremely well. And I'm blown away by that building.
Oh, yeah. We've been there a few times. It's beautiful.
And what they have built out in terms of the gym and the players' lounge. She was showing off the couches that are made for tall people, and the machine that helps you rehabilitate a torn ACL. That is tough to get. The cameras that are looking down on the court that can record practice and look at the arc from a player's shot. Look how much energy they're getting from their legs, and they're able to walk off the court and coach them. I mean, that's why they're calling it a performance center. And in terms of a recruitment tool, not only, I mean, you heard a little bit there from Rohre. I mean, not only the idea that you're recruiting players, but you're recruiting the talent, so to speak, off the court in the front office. It really kind of works in more than than one way, and it's exciting. And this TV deal with KOMO is kind of the next step in all of this, the evolution of it all.
We are, first of all, just fortunate and lucky and so happy to be their partner, but especially at this moment in time, look out. It's going to be a fun few years ahead.
And they don't have to buy any torpedo bats.
No, they've got some good shooters out there. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Bill, they don't need torpedo bats. No.
Producer Bill says no.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Well, I'm just we've talked about our length in this show.
Oh, final buzzer.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed the buzzer. Where's the buzzer? There it is.
Red one.
There we go.
I just want to reiterate, we are so pumped to be with the Storm, and it was a really cool Storm Watch special that we did on last Monday. Talisa was here, Nate Silverman was here, our front office was here. Listen, people don't realize this. I know, obviously you do, but like when I'm anchoring in that studio, there's nobody there. It's just a couple of people I consider family. And then all of a sudden you get all these other people. They're like, oh man, there's some pressure on this. No, but it was just a perfect way to kick it off because we were so awesome. And we're so thankful to be partners with an awesome organization like the Storm. And I'll reiterate, 33 games between KOMO and KUNS. Some of those will be simulcast on both. KUNS, of course, being ARC Seattle CW. And we're going to have some pregame shows. We're going to have nightly features. And that doesn't even get into, the content per se of those pregame shows, the stories of those players and getting to know people. Like, people don't know that assistant coach Pokey Chapman is one of the coolest people out there, but they will now because we're going to do those stories. We're going to check in regularly with those folks. So if you're a Storm fan, you're going to love it. If you're not a Storm fan, what are you doing? And jump on now because we're going to have awesome coverage for you.
And if you're just waiting for the Supersonics to come back, you got to watch the Storm too.
Yeah, that's just it.
Yeah.
You want to see green and gold at Climate Pledge Arena? There's your team.
All right. Big frickin' week.
Thank you, Storm. We love you.
All right, David Lee, take us out.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.